Urraca, called the Reckless, was Queen of Leon, Castile and Galicia from 1109 until her death. She claimed the imperial title as suo jure Empress of all Spain and Empress of all Galicia. Urraca was born to King Alfonso VI of Leon and Castile and Constance of Burgundy. Constance, Alfonso's second wife, was closely related to the French royal family, but she was born likely in Sahagun or Leon around 1080, probably in 1081. Urraca was married to Raymond of Burgundy. Unlike her mother, who was a member of the ruling house of the Duchy of Burgundy, her husband descended from the rulers of the neighboring county of Burgundy. Raymond was also the brother-in-law of Urraca's maternal cousin Duke Odo I of Burgundy and Odo's brother Henry. The Muslim Almoravids inflicted a heavy defeat on Alfonso VI at Sagrajas in 1086, and Urraca's marriage to Raymond was part of Alfonso's diplomatic strategy to attract cross-Pyrenees alliances. Raymond wed Urraca likely before early 1090, when royal diplomas first present them as rulers of the «land of St. James», or Galicia. Raymond reached the age of majority by the time of the marriage, but Alfonso VI continued to control the administration of Galicia.
In 1093 Urraca's mother died and Alfonso's Moorish concubine Zaida of Seville gave birth to a son, Sancha Raimundez. The birth of her illegitimate brother jeopardized Urraca's position as their father's sole heir. The power base of Raymond and Urraca weakened even more when Alfonso granted the «land of Portugal» to his illegitimate daughter Teresa and her husband Henry of Burgundy around 1094.
As a woman, Urraca was under the tutelage of her husband. Raymond was mentioned at the first place in almost all documents issued during his rule as Count of Galicia.
Two documents, both confirming privileges of the burghers of Santiago de Compostela, referred to her as Queen Urraca, in 1095 and 1105.
The use of the title may have expressed her resentment at her inferior position, although infantas, or royal princesses, were occasionally styled queens in this period. Sancha Alfónsez was regularly mentioned in royal diplomas from 1103, showing that Alfonso VI regarded his only son as his heir, although most clerics opposed the succession of an illegitimate child.
By March 1107, Sancho was elected king on his father's initiative. Raymond made preparations for a succession crisis through an alliance with their brother-in-law Henry of Portugal. Their treaty was confirmed in the presence of a high-ranking monk from the Abbey of Cluny late in 1105 or early in 1106. They agreed on the division of their father-in-law's realms without referring to Sancho's claims, and Henry promised to rule his portion as Raymond's vassal.
Raymond fell seriously ill and died in Grajal de Campos in September 1107. The widowed Urraca took full responsibility of the administration of Galicia. She styled herself Empress of whole Galicia in her letter of grant to the Lugo Cathedral late in 1107 or early in 1108. The Galician clerics and aristocrats regarded Urraca's infant son by Raymond, Alfonso Raimundez, as Raymond's lawful successor. The boy's position as his father's heir was confirmed in their presence at an assembly in Leon by Alfonso VI.
The king also acknowledged his grandson's right to rule Galicia in case of Urraca's remarriage. Around this time Urraca began a love affair with the Castilian aristocrat Gómez González. Sancho Alfónsez died fighting against the Almoravids at Ucles on 29 May 1108. After her half-brother's unexpected death, Urraca became their father's sole heir. Her new position was ceremoniously confirmed at an assembly of almost all nobles and counts of Spain, shortly before her father died on 30 June or 1 July 1108.
Urraca succeeded her father as the first queen regnant in European history. Her earliest extant diploma, issued in favor of the Leon Cathedral a day after her father's funeral, referred to her as Queen of whole Spain. Prominent Leonese, Castilian and Galician aristocrats and 12 bishops witnessed the document, showing that her realm's elite acknowledged her as lawful monarch. Two early sources, the Chronicle of Sahagun and the Historia Compostelana, attribute the proposal about Urraca's marriage to Alfonso I, King of Aragon and Navarre, to the Leonese aristocrats. They were reportedly convinced that a female monarch would be unable to rule and defend the kingdom against the Almoravids and forced Urraca to marry to the bloodthirsty and cruel Aragonese tyrant, against her will. Bernard of Sédirac, Archbishop of Toledo, raised objections against the marriage, emphasizing that Urraca and Alfonso were cousins.
In contrast with the two chronicles, Rodrigo Jimenez de Rada writes that Alfonso VI started the negotiations about his heir's marriage with Alfonso I because he wanted to prevent Urraca's marriage with her lover, Gómez González. Gordo Molina and Melo Carrasque proposed that both reports could be reliable, because the selection of a suitable husband for his daughter and heir was the elderly king's most important task before his death.
Alfonso I married Urraca in the castle of Monzon in October or November 1109. In December, Urraca granted her whole land that used to be her father's to her husband, whom she mentioned as Lord and my spouse. In the same document, she stipulated that Alfonso should respect her, like a good husband his good wife, and he could not request the annulment of their marriage, referring to their kinship or excommunication. The document confirmed the right of Urraca's son by her first marriage to inherit Leon in case the couple died without issue. The Galician aristocrats' traditional desire for independence awakened, and they used the defense of Alfonso Raimundez's right to rule Galicia and succeed his mother as a pretext for a rebellion. After their leader Pedro Froilas de Traba announced that Urraca had lost her claim to rule Galicia when remarrying, they proclaimed Alfonso Raimundez king. Pedro Arias, Pedro Gudsteiz and other Galician nobles who remained loyal to Urraca formed a brotherhood against Pedro Froilas and his allies. They offered the leadership to Diego Gelmírez, who had been elevated to Bishop of Compostela, but Gelmírez remained neutral in the conflict. Alfonso I and Urraca invaded Galicia and seized the important castle of Monterosso, but reports of the cruelty of the Aragonese troops outraged the Leonese aristocrats. The relationship between Alfonso I and the high clergy grew tense. The Bishop of Palencia was imprisoned, the Archbishop of Toledo, the bishops of Burgos and Leon and the abbot of Sahagun were forced to flee. The marriage proved unfortunate. Alfonso's prejudice against women is well documented, and he disliked Urraca's son. She disdained her husband for his superstitious nature, in particular for his fear of ravens and crows, and he killed a Galician noble who had sought Urraca's protection in Monterosso during their campaign in Galicia. Her husband regularly shamed her in the royal court and often went as far as beating and kicking her in public. Urraca's letter of grant to the Abbey of Santo Domingo de Silos is the earliest attestation to her will to get rid of her husband's tutelage.
In the document, she styled herself as Queen of whole Spain and daughter of Emperor Alfonso, on 13 June 1110.
The exact circumstances of Urraca's separation from her husband are uncertain. According to contemporaneous sources, she left Alfonso after consulting with her advisors. Rodrigo Jimenez de Rada writes that Alfonso repudiated her for her infidelity, leaving her free to do whatever she pleased. The last document mentioning Urraca in her second husband's company was issued on the 22nd of May 1112. The marriage of Urraca and Alfonso almost immediately sparked rebellions in Galicia and scheming by her illegitimate half-sister Teresa and brother-in-law Henry, the Countess and Count of Portugal.
Also, they believed that the new marriage of Urraca could put in jeopardy the rights of the son of her first marriage, Alfonso Raimundez. One of the first acts of the new spouses was to sign a pact under which the monarchs granted to each other soberana potestas over the other's kingdom, declaring heir of both their future children, and in the case that the union was childless, the surviving spouse would succeed the other one in the throne.
From the start, the Galician faction was divided in two tendencies. One headed by Archbishop Diego Gelmírez of Santiago de Compostela, who defended the position of Alfonso Raimundez as Urraca's successor, and another led by Count Pedro Froilas de Traba, tutor of the young prince, who was inclined to the complete independence of Galicia under the rule of Alfonso. A third group of opposition to the royal marriage was at the court and was headed by Count Gómez González, whose motivation against Urraca and Alfonso I of Aragon could have been his fear of losing power. A sensation soon confirmed when Alfonso I appointed Aragonese and Navarrese nobles for important public posts and as holders of fortresses. From Galicia, the Count of Traba began the first aggressive movement against the monarchs, reclaiming the hereditary rights of Alfonso Raimundez. In response to the Galician rebellion, Alfonso I of Aragon marched with his army to Galicia and in 1110, re-established the order there after defeating the local troops in Monterosso Castle. The Galician rebellion against the royal power was only the beginning of a series of political and military conflicts which, with the complete opposite personalities of Urraca and Alfonso I and their mutual dislike, gave rise to a continuous civil war in the Hispanic kingdoms over the following years. Urraca did not share the governance of her realms with her husband.
As their relationship soured, Urraca accused Alfonso of physical abuse, and by May 1110 she separated from Alfonso. In addition to her objections to Alfonso's handling of rebels, the couple had a falling out over his execution of one of the rebels who had surrendered to the queen, to whom the queen was inclined to be merciful. Additionally, as Urraca was married to someone many in the kingdom objected to, the queen's son and heir became a rallying point for opponents to the marriage.
Estrangement between husband and wife escalated from discreet and simmering hostilities into open armed warfare between the Leonese Castilians and the Aragonese. An alliance between Alfonso of Aragon and Henry of Portugal culminated in the 1111 Battle of Candispina, in which Urraca's lover and chief supporter Gómez González was killed. He was soon replaced in both roles by another count, Pedro González de Lara, who took up the fight and would father at least two further children by Urraca. By the fall of 1112 a truce was brokered between Urraca and Alfonso with their marriage annulled. Though Urraca recovered Asturias, Leon, and Galicia, Alfonso occupied a significant portion of Castile, where Urraca enjoyed large support, while her half-sister Teresa and her husband Count Henry of Portugal occupied Zamora and Extremadura. Recovering these regions and expanding into Muslim lands would occupy much of Urraca's foreign policy. Despite the annulment of their marriage, on the grounds of consanguinity, Alfonso continued his efforts for political control. 39. While Urraca was engaged in this battle, she also had to contend with the schemes of her sister, who promoted a plan to replace the queen by her son. This particular incident ended in a compromise between the two sisters where Teresa was granted a vast territory in Leon in exchange for agreeing that she was Urraca's vassal. According to the 12th century Chronicon Compostelanum, Urraca died in adulterous childbirth on 8 March 1126 in the castle of Saldana. As queen, she rose to the challenges presented to her, and her solutions were seen by Riley as pragmatic ones. Her delaying the accession of her son Alfonso VII nevertheless led to a turbulent transition of power, as the new king would have to face the rebellion of her lover Pedro González upon her death, followed by an attempted invasion by the King of Aragon, and the resumption of Galician revolts.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe my channel for more videos.